Greetings, peoples of the interwebs. Jake here, and welcome to another edition of Comic Book Corner, where basically I run through some of the most recent news in comic books in the comic book world, whether it be the movies, the TV shows, or the comic books themselves. So, let's start off with perhaps the biggest thing that came out of the comic world, being the reveal that Captain America has been a secret Hydra agent the entire time. Now, personally, I thought that was kind of a cool reveal. I haven't actually read the issue yet. I'm not freaking out about it like a lot of other people are. So apparently there's a petition to get Marvel to change, but essentially like undo what they just did in that first issue, which I think is a little absurd just because it's only it's issue 1. Let's let the story kind of unfold, see how it goes. Then if it's bad, Marvel can retcon it or, figure out some kind of way of undoing that. But until then, I think people just need to kind of settle down. Let the story unfold, because for all we know, this could turn into like a really great storyline. Also, as for the 75th anniversary of Captain America, so I think it was one of those things where they wanted to change things up a bit, which I'm all for, especially for a character who's been around for as long as Captain America and is such an iconic figure in the comic book world. I'm all for changing it up a little bit, even if it is, just a temporary thing, because let's be honest, it's not like this Hydra thing is going to be permanent. Even if this is the Captain America, he's not like a clone or he's not being brainwashed or whatever. This is the Captain America. There's no kind of like ulterior motive, and he is in fact a Hydra agent. This isn't permanent. So, let's see how long this lasts. Also, I'm actually all for it just because it's produced some of the greatest memes I've seen on the internet. So, for you amazing people who keep posting those memes on the Captain America Hydra agent, hats off to you, and I thank you. So, moving on to the movie world. Apparently the rights to Namor, the Submariner, are back in Marvel, and a film is actually in the works. Now, I personally have not read any Namor comics. I've only read a few comics with Namor in them, so I don't have a whole lot of opinions on the character himself. All I know is that Aquaman was pretty much a ripoff of Namor. And that Namor was one of the first Marvel characters, even before Marvel Comics were Marvel Comics, along with Captain America, the original Human Torch, and I think a handful of other characters. And he was also the first mutant, if I'm not mistaken. They could have retconned that, because again, I'm not 100% sure on the details of Namor. I just kind of know some of the very basic stuff. He's the ruler of Atlantis and all that jazz. But that being said, if Marvel are in development of a movie, I'm all for it, just because Marvel have not done us wrong so far. All their movies, even their weaker movies, have been pretty solid. Now, I don't know what you all's opinions on this, but I almost think it would be cool to see Namor appear in another movie first before a solo movie. Like, maybe even one of the Infinity War movies, or maybe he shows up as, like, a supporting character in one of these other standalone films. But regardless of how he's introduced, whether it be, again, in, like, Infinity War or another Marvel movie before he gets his own solo movie, or he's introduced in a solo movie, regardless, I'm okay with it. I think it'll be cool to see a different environment in the Marvel world, because presumably a lot of the movie will take place in Atlantis, so it'll be cool to see like this kind of underworld civilization, and who his enemies will be in the movie. So I love how Marvel really been stepping it up with like changing up the genres and also kind of introducing us to new environments, like how Guardians introduced us to the cosmic realm of the Marvel Universe. Doctor Strange will introduce us to like the different dimensions and all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to what they do with Namor, and just what comes of this. I don't know who. I believe he was previously owned by Universal through some means, but I guess either the rights reverted back to Marvel or they worked out some kind of deal with Universal. And for those of you who don't know, Universal also have the distributing rights to Hulk. And that's why there hasn't been another standalone Hulk movie, because they have to like cut a deal with Universal. However, Marvel can use the Hulk in like the Avenger films and like as a side character in all their movies and not have to worry about Universal taking some of the cut, as far as I understand it. So, well, what do you all think about Namor coming into the MCU in some form or fashion, or do you think the movie will come out in this Phase 3 or Phase 4, which I'm thinking probably Phase 4, at least for a solo movie. Again, there's plenty of time that I think they could introduce him in one of the later Phase 3 movies, more than likely Infinity War if he is introduced. But I'd say more than likely his solo movie won't come out until Phase 4. So sometime after, like, 2020. Which is crazy thinking that seems like such a long time away, but there's so many other Marvel movies and just other comic book movies in between then. So, let me think, or let me know what you all think about Captain America, the reveal of him being a Hydra agent, Namor coming into the MCU. I'm really curious to hear what you all think. And also, if you will know any more about Namor than I do, which I imagine a lot of you do, feel free to educate me on Namor and some of his backstory. Next up is DC's Rebirth and the apparently super successful sales of the comics, which I think is understandable because for a while after Convergence, DC was kind of on a slow decline in a lot of their comic sales for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just because of lack of interest or the storytelling wasn't that good, because I didn't read a whole lot of the Convergence, so I can't really say for myself. However, I did pick up the first, or I guess, 0 issue or issue 1 of Rebirth, and it was pretty solid. I like that they're kind of explaining, everything from, like, post New 52, and all that stuff, and kind of, I don't know, I guess just trying to, like, consolidate everything. And also Wally West, the original Wally West, is coming back, which I think is great, because I loved him in the animated Justice League show from, I believe, the early 2000s. That was actually the Flash that I grew up with, before the show came out on the CW with Barry Allen, and New 52 started with Barry Allen. So I think it'll be really cool to see him come back into the fold as the original Wally West. But it's no surprise that the Rebirth sales are doing really well, just because, again, that's usually what a lot of these comic book companies do, is not reboot per se, but they have some kind of event like this to kind of bring in new readers, and I think that's smart, especially considering how steadily the sales for DC Comics were, or steadily declining the sales were. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to keeping up with the DC Rebirth. I've already picked up the Green Arrow Rebirth, because he's one of my favorite DC characters. And again, the first issue of Rebirth was pretty solid, so I'm looking forward to checking out some of the other Rebirth characters and storylines. Then I guess lastly, before I start wrapping this video up, is the extended cut for Batman v Superman on Blu-ray and DVD comes out later this month. And I watched the trailer for it, and it's kind of interesting that a 2.5-minute trailer explained more than a 2.5-hour movie. Go figure. Now, obviously, I know that it was originally like at least a 3-hour cut. I've even heard that there was a 4-hour cut of the movie. So I think it makes sense. Obviously, they had to cut the movie down to fit theaters, because not a whole lot of people are going to watch a 3 to 4 hour movie, even something like Batman and Superman being on screen for the first time ever. So I'm really curious to see how big of a difference this extended cut makes. And for those of you who don't know, I was one of those people who was not crazy about Batman v Superman. I thought there was just so many things lacking in the movie, in particular story. It was jumbled. Not a whole lot of things made sense, like character motivations, and the story was almost non-existent. And it does seem like with this extended cut, there will be more of a story to kind of like flesh out what it was lacking in the theatrical cut. And also kind of like maybe shed some more light on some of these other characters and subplots that were going on. Now, whether it'll make a significant difference to where I think people like me who weren't crazy about the film will change their minds and say it was a really good movie, I'm not going to commit to that yet. I hope to be pleasantly surprised, though, because again, I wanted to love Batman v Superman so much for so many different reasons, but ultimately it didn't do it for me. Yeah, I'm really hoping that this extended cut can, if it doesn't improve my opinions on the movie significantly, I hope that it can at least get me to kind of realize, oh, okay, I see what they were doing there with some of these subplots and setting up for like the future movies. But overall, I still feel like the movie was still too jam-packed with too many different storylines and characters, and I know that, like, the Marvel movies and even the X-Men films have done, movies with, like, a very crowded cast, but they seem to have a better handle on it. I mean, granted, they've had the advantage of having made the Marvel movies and the X-Men movies for more, a lot more time than the DC movies, which have basically just now started. Even though I wasn't too crazy about X-Men Apocalypse either, but that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I do think that this extended cut will, if not sway people like myself, and even the people who hate it or dislike the movie. I shouldn't say hate. Hopefully no one hated it. Because even though it was a little disappointing, there wasn't anything worthy of hate, aside from maybe Lex Luthor. But I digress. But yeah, hopefully the extended cut will at least give us a better idea of what they were going for in the movie, and again, just kind of help explain what was going on in the movie, because again, there was such a lack of direction and story. For me personally, I know some people love the movie. They thought it was, one of the best comic book movies ever, which is fantastic. I'm glad that there were people who enjoyed the movie. It's just, again, for me personally, it didn't do a whole lot for me, and I'm hoping that this extended cut will kind of open my eyes and, I guess, make me be a bit more forgiving of the movie, and less apprehensive and skeptical of the movies to come. Like Justice League, I'm a little hesitant towards. Suicide Squad, I think, will be great. Wonder Woman, I think, will be good. But the team movies, like, again, Justice League, it sounds like Warner Brothers is kind of, with the change-up of appointing people to different areas. It sounds like they're kind of trying to fix all the issues, but only time will tell, and hopefully they're doing all this change up and switching around for the best, and so that way they can kind of get the DC cinematic universe on track, and we'll actually be able to compete with Marvel and these other superhero movies. Like, they'll be able to compete with the Fox superhero movies. So again, something that people may not realize is, whether you're a fanboy of Marvel or DC, which I'll not get into that, but regardless of however you feel about, like, the DC movies or Marvel movies or the Fox Marvel movies, all these different companies, they need their movies to succeed. Marvel wants the DC movies to succeed, and I know some people are wondering, why would they do that? They're competing. Here's why. If one of these movies flops, like Batman v Superman flopped, like financially and I guess critically it was kind of a flop, but if it, like, completely flopped, that doesn't bode well for the Marvel proper or the Fox Marvel movies, because then that to them shows that there's a lack of interest for these superhero movies, and therefore they're going to start making less of them. However, if all these movies continue to do well financially and critically, the more comic book movies we're going to continue to get, and the longer this golden, amazing age of comic book movies and TV shows will continue. Because if you're like me, you want this to last until as long as humanly possible, so that way we can keep getting these amazing comic book movies and TV shows. Especially when they're bringing out these more obscure characters like Suicide Squad, Doctor Strange. It's amazing that we're living in this day and age where these are becoming full-length feature movies. So long as all these different movie franchises continue to do well, we'll continue to get these comic book movies. So, regardless of where your loyalties lie with DC, Marvel, Fox, whatever, go see the movies anyways and support them, just so that way we can keep this golden age of comic book movies going. Because again, we all want this to last as long as humanly possible. But that's pretty much all I have to say in this video. There wasn't a whole lot going on. I just figured I'd cover the 4 bigger things. I'm sure there's tons of other things that I missed, but those are the 4 things I mostly wanted to cover in this video. And I went off on a little bit of a tangent on why, all these movies need to be successful. So hopefully, again, you all will support all the movies regardless of your feelings towards them. I would hope that you all are fans of both Marvel and DC and will support them anyways because you love the movies and the comics. But anyways, that pretty much wraps up this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll try to make this a regular thing since the first video went over pretty well. I'll probably do these videos like maybe bi-weekly, or just whenever there's new stuff going on in the comic book world. But Before I wrap this up, again, I'd like to promote some other things going on. One of which is we recently just reached 100 subscribers on the channel, which is awesome. So I'll be doing a live stream at some point in the near future. I'll announce that on Twitter and the Pasty Pale Productions Facebook page. So go check out the Facebook page, like that, so you can get updates on when things are going to be uploaded, the next podcast topics, all that jazz. And then, of course, I'm on Twitter at Irishman Jake, all one word. So follow me there, and again, you can kind of get updates and just see what I'm up to in the world of Twitter and social media. So the live stream will be happening sometime soon, probably towards the end of the month, maybe early next month. And then, of course, I'm also co-hosting 2 other podcasts on the Film Beef podcast, where I do a Game of Thrones recap show and Preacher recap show. So for those of you who love Game of Thrones and you like Preacher, go check out Film Beef, either on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all the podcasting apps, or their YouTube channel, just a Film Beef, where they post their podcasts as well. And you can hear our thoughts on Game of Thrones and Preacher, and then we'll probably do some other recap shows as well down the road. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. Hopefully you will have enjoyed this, and, again, let me know in the comments below on what you think about some of the things I covered in this video, or if there are things that I missed that you all think I should talk about, then I'll talk about that next time. So, until next time, everyone, cheers.